On today's episode, I have compiled 50 of my best fall DIYs, so sit back, relax, or maybe even DIY right along with me, but let's get started on our first one, which is a jack-o'-lantern or pumpkin crate using all Dollar Tree stuff. So I went in, and as you know, if you've been in there, there's a huge variety of different types of wood pumpkins. But whatever you do, you're gonna want at least 4 of the pumpkins, all of the same. You might even want to go with 6. The first thing you're gonna do is you are gonna leave 2 of them alone, leave the jack-o'-lantern face on. The next thing you're gonna do is take something flat, like a spatula or something, and scrape off all of the other jack-o'-lantern pieces. And if you're very careful, you might be able to save these and set them aside for another project. Some of them kind of got sacrificed to the cause, but some of them worked out just great. So I have little extra jack-o'-lantern pieces for another project. Then you're gonna stack them with some wood glue, and then you're gonna take some pinching clamps, nothing crazy here, and we are going to clamp them together. So you have 2 end pieces essentially that are too thick. So after my wood pumpkins were dry, I took out our base piece, which is a new like plaque piece. I don't even know what the exact dimensions of it are, but you'll see them at the stores. They're really cool. And that was gonna be our base piece. And so I put a little bit of wood glue on the end of that and shot about 3 or 4 brad nails into either side to kind of create our end caps of our crate pumpkin. Then I had the longer, skinnier slats, and they were too long. They did not match up with the base dimension. So I made our marks of where we needed to cut those, and we had 4 of those. And I cut off those. And don't forget to keep those little extras, because you can turn those into something really cool. I keep all of my little extras because you never know when you're gonna need something, like on our next project. So once we got those down, this is a little tricky part because the crate is round. It's like, where do you put the slats, and you're kind of eyeballing it. It's gonna take a little fudging. I kind of just made some measurements of where I wanted it to be, and really the important part is trying to get it even on the outside and level. And so just making some marks, and then taking some wood glue on either side of that, and then shooting in some brad nails from that side. Be careful to keep your fingers away from where the nails could go through, because you might miss it a couple of times. So once you finally get that figured out, you let it dry, and you've got a cute crate. So then you'll just take some wood filler and go back in and fill in those holes, and just very subtly, and it'll be great and it will look good. What I chose to do is take some antiquing glaze and cover the entire thing with antiquing glaze. It gives it a stained effect, and it dries very quickly, so that's why I went with that. And then once it was dry, I went back in to add a little dimension and character. I sanded out some of the edges, and it was really, really rustic. And that was it. So I had to run some errands and get a couple of things at Walmart. So I took it in there, and by the way, I did find a really cute arrangement, but when I went to check out, this is the funny part, I was getting ready to leave, then they came up to me and they're like, "You forgot to ring up the crate." So I was like, I made this. Isn't this so cute? I think this would make a really cute table centerpiece. You can put it on your shelf. I love how this turned out. This looks super, super high end, and pretty much everything was from the Dollar Tree. So there you go. Up next, we have some directional signs to put on our witch's broomstick. So I made some stencils on my Cricut machine, then of course I weeded it, and I put the transfer tape on, and then I peeled off the back and got it onto our wood plaques, and there's 3 of them. And then what I took is this wood burning marker, which I love, is so easy. Yes, there's some DIY recipes out there, but for me, the convenience of this is so nice to just fill it in with a marker. And so I did that on all 3 of them. And then you peel back the stencil. Then you take out your wood burning tool. It's like a heating gun. And we burn the image into the wood. Now you could do vinyl, but I really thought on a witch's broom, burning seemed appropriate for whatever reason. And then I found this random stain on a clearance shelf at Walmart, and I thought I'd give it a try. I had no idea what the color would look like, but I thought it was worth it to give it a whirl. So I put on the stain, and what I did notice is when I stained it, first of all, it ended up being a little darker than I had originally anticipated. And it was fine. I mean, it worked out okay. While that was drying, we needed to build a base for this witch's broom if it was gonna stand up. So what I did is I cut one of those pieces in half and stuck them on either side, and then I made sure that all of the dimensions for where we're making like an X space were the same on either side, which ended up being 15.5 inches for your reference. And then like, I think the two little side pieces were 6 3/4 or whatever it ends up adding up to be 15.5. And then I broke out our Craig jig. You just line it up with the edge of the wood that you want to put it into, clamp the little device down onto that wood, take the special bit that they provide and drill it into the wood. And I did 2 of those on each little shorter piece. Then you need to get special Craig screws. I don't remember what the length is. I think they're like 1.5 inches. And it has a special drill bit that you also need with those screws. Then you clamp it all into place, finding right and center. Make sure it's nice and tight and flat, because you don't want the heights to be off kilter, so you want to make sure when you clamp it that the 2 wood pieces are nice and even together. And then you run the screws into each pilot hole, and there you go. You do that on both sides and you have this X base. And then once that was built, I stained it to match the signs, and so that there would be a nice cohesive look to it. And so let that dry as well. Once everything was all dry, I drilled a hole in the center of our base, but before we could attach it to my walking stick, it was a little curved on the bottom, so I just took my miter saw, just cut off a little tiny bit on the end piece there, and so it would be nice and flush when we attached it. And then I pre-drilled a hole in the bottom of the walking stick, pre-drilled a hole in our little X space, and shot up a 2.5-inch screw into the base of our witch's broom. So then we needed like the witch's broom part, like the bottom, the sweeping part. So I just bought a big bag of raffia at Walmart for, I believe it was around $5, and that's what I used. And I pulled out a few strands and set those aside for later, but then I pretty much took the entirety of the raffia, folded it in half, cut it in half, and then folded that in half again and created 2 bunches, one for the front, one for the back, and folded that on. Then I took some tan packing tape and just wrapped that around where I thought the base of the broom should be. And that was more to just kind of hold it in place while I was kind of hiding some of the mechanics of things or getting it worked out. And then I took the raffia that I had set aside and wrapped that around and tied that in a knot. So what I ended up doing is taking some fishing wire and very strategically tying it in a couple of areas to hold the broom into the end position. But like I said, you could put it on the bottom and you wouldn't even have that problem at all, because you wouldn't be fighting gravity and it would just go down and cover the base. But like I said, I wanted the broomstick up. So it is what it is, and I just went with it. And honestly, I am thrilled with the end result. The whole thing kind of looked rustic anyways. Then I just sanded down some of the edges of the sign, and that was it. But isn't this such a cute piece of decor? So mine ended up being $15 because I spent $7 on the walking stick. But if you were to do this and just find your own walking stick, you could do it for $8. And this is like easily a $60 look with stuff from the Dollar Tree, a walking stick, and some raffia from Walmart. I just absolutely love it. Think it's super, super adorable. So the first thing I set out to do was painting the entire thing black and getting a nice neutral base. And then I got this pumpkin mold, and I think it's meant for making muffins. And I filled it up with hot glue and used it as a mold. And I didn't fill it all the way up, but probably around 1/4 of an inch thick. And I also made sure to do the stem, which was up a little bit higher, and so it was separated. And then I let that fully cool. Then we removed it from the mold and trimmed off any excess with scissors, and that was super easy to do. And then I took some hot glue and glued it right into the center of our tag, and then made sure everything looked good. And then I did another coat of black chalk paint over the top of it. So then it kind of disappears a little bit, but that's no matter. We go back in and I do a little bit of distressing around the edges, make sure that the edges of the tag were smooth. They were a little bit rough, so I just took some sandpaper to that. And then I decided it needed a little bit more drama to it, so I took some Autumn Gold Rub and Buff and just kind of hit all of the edges with that. And I really decided to accentuate the pumpkin with this, and so that would add a lot of drama and dimension to that. And then I added a washer that I also added some Autumn Gold Rub and Buff to, and let that dry. And while everything was drying, then I went about making a wreath for this. So this is a wreath that I got on the Target dollar spot clearance last season, so it still has some autumn colors to it. And then I also took some cheetah print pumpkins that I got from Hobby Lobby on 50% off. It was in a large bag and I only used 3 of them. Then I used some hydrangeas and these little orange pomegranates, or I've heard some people call them rose hips. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I just kind of assembled a little wreath out of all of these things, and I thought this was super fun, super cute. And then we needed to attach our wreath to the tag, so I took a push pin, and I took a little bit of elbow grease, I'm not gonna lie, and I pushed that through the tag. Now a little bit of it poked out on the back side, so I took some wire cutters and clipped off the back, and it still poked out a little bit, so I just took a little dollop of hot glue and put that on the back and let that cool. Then on the front side I took some fishing line and tied that to the push pin, and then tied our wreath on with that. Then I took some black and white striped ribbon that I had and made a little hanger out of that, and just looped that through the hole and tied a knot, and that was it. I think it's super cute. I think the green and all of the other colors really make it pop, and the black just is a nice good backdrop, and I think that it looks great. This next DIY, I was inspired by something that I saw at Hobby Lobby, and it was like a stack of pumpkins, and this is what it looked like. I bet we could make a little bit larger version out of Dollar Tree things, and that's what I set out to do. Okay, so where I started on this was I took one of the Dollar Tree pumpkins that have like the burlap on it and a little decorative thing, and I peeled all of that off, and then I took my little scraper tool, my spatula, and scraped off all the glitter, and then of course I cleaned up, and then it was prepped, and then I just traced out the shape of that onto the peel and stick pressed tin tiles that they have at Dollar Tree. But it's so easy to do. Then you just take some scissors and cut out what you traced on. Then I take some Mod Podge, which I think is a good way to adhere it, and stuck it and let it dry. Then I moved on to the next one, which I peeled off from one of those Friends Football Family pumpkins. I peeled one of those off and I flipped it over to the back side. And then I had these wood beads that I traced the exterior with. I had them in my stash. Honestly, I would recommend going with a little bit smaller bead. I felt like these beads were just a hair too big. You might even want to go ahead and try some of those pearly sticker strands that you can get from the Dollar Tree, but I had the wood ones, and so I went with that, and I just hot glued them on the outside. And then I took them outside and spray painted them in a flat white spray paint, and got good coverage and let that fully dry. Before we attach everything, I just took some sandpaper and scuffed it up to give it that rustic look from the inspiration one. And now we're gonna kind of assemble the whole thing together. And what I did here is I took another one of those ones with the little stands on it and removed what was in there and took that part because we're gonna need it in assembling this all together. So then we're gonna attach our large natural pumpkin, and I just decided to leave that natural, and we're gonna hot glue the pressed tin one to it. We're gonna hot glue our one with the wood beads to it, and we're gonna attach them all. And then all it was just a little bit of embellishments by way of some baker's twine and some hot glue, a little bit of greenery, and then you have this really cute neutral fall decor that I thought would be super, super cute. It was very affordable to put together, and I like the way it looks. I know you've probably seen those beautiful velvet pumpkins at the Dollar Tree. So what I did is I bought 3 of them in the blue color because I thought that could work. I really liked it. I thought it was a pretty color. Because of like some of the decor that I had going on, I took some Rub and Buff and did a pewter color on the stem. Now, honestly, I think if I were to do it again, I might have picked a different color, maybe a gold or more of a bronzy color to just up the ante. But taking a little Rub and Buff on that stem to just up it a little bit and elevate it a little bit, I think that is good. And then they had these beautiful blue fall leaves as well. And then we're gonna take those leaves and we're gonna take the larger leaf and we're gonna hot glue that on the side, and then we're gonna take the smaller leaf and then hot glue that on the same side but a little bit in front of it and let that dry. Then I had these little pearly buttons left over from another project. I had several of them, but I took 3 of them and hot glued that kind of up next to the base of the stem, and I just loved it. I really, really love how that turned out. Took minutes to do this upgrade. Up next, we are going to be putting together kind of a pumpkin topiary. I found these really cute white ceramic pots that have these little kind of milk glass effect to it with the little polka dots on the outside. Really cute. Then I found these really beautiful hydrangeas that kind of have different shades of green, maybe a hint of blue. They were beautiful and really high quality looking. So the first thing that we're gonna do is take our planter pot and cut off some floral foam, and you just probably need about 1/3 of a floral foam piece of one of those big bricks, and for each one of the pots, because I was making a set of 3. Next, we cut down our hydrangea and only kept the hydrangea floral part. The leaves I felt were a little bit bulky for what we're doing, but don't despair, we do get some leaves in there. But so we're just taking the hydrangea piece, clipping that off short enough that it will easily press down into the pot and cover up our floral foam so you don't see it. Next, I raided my stash, and I did have some, but not 3 matching ones of a kind. So I did take a quick trip to Hobby Lobby, and they had some white pumpkins, super cute, and they had some greenery. They also had some raffia on it. I cut that off. I just didn't feel like it fit the look that I was going for. And then I removed some of the bottom leaves because it was just too many leaves for what we were doing, but I left a couple just for a little bit of personality. And then I cut down the pick just a bit because it was still a little bit long for what we're doing, and then I shoved that pumpkin right into the center, right on top of our hydrangea, and then I kind of interweaved the leaves with the hydrangeas, kind of pushing the leaves down to the bottom and the hydrangeas up, and that was it. Super, super easy. I love the overall classy look to this. It was so easy to put together, but it has such a high-end feel. So easy, love it, super classy. Next up, I use the Sort Sew rug, but there's just so many applications for this rug. So what I decided to do with the rug this time was turn it into a pillow. So you're gonna need 2 for this, and I just took the dimensions of a pillow that I had on hand from IKEA. I really love feather down pillows. This one was a feather down pillow, and I took the dimensions, and I believe it was like 26.5 by 15.5 or something like that. You're gonna wanna measure it out. Whatever the dimensions of your pillow are, add 1.5 inches, and that will give you a nice seam allowance without being too big. You want the pillow to fill out the pillow form, and that's what we did.
You're here, I see colors in every spectrum.
So I went and ironed it really quick to get those seams out that are infamous from the folding. And then I zigzagged the edge where we cut so it wouldn't fray, because this rug does fray easily. If you just do a zigzag on all of those cut edges, it won't be a problem, I promise. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna set that aside for a minute, because we are going to make some fall letters. Now, what I recommend doing is cutting out all the letters with paper scissors first. I have had many a sewing scissor ruined by cutting paper, so cut them out with paper scissors first, and then pin them to your canvas. Now, this is a canvas drop cloth. Buy one cloth and you will be using it for years. Then you're gonna pin your fall letter pattern to your canvas, and you are gonna cut about 1/4 inch all the way around. Now, the letters itself is how I want it to be finished size, and you're gonna see why this all makes sense in the end. Just cut like 1/4 inch all the way around on all of the letters and get them all situated. Then you are gonna take your letters and lay them out on the top of one of your rugs and pin them into place right in the center, spacing them, you know, evenly apart, and you're gonna leave the edges unfinished. Once you've got those pinned on your rug, we are gonna stitch in a straight stitch all the way around the letters anywhere there is an edge, and you're gonna kind of line it up with the inside of the presser foot just a little bit, so you have about 1/4 inch seam. And then once you have all of your letters sewn on, the edges are going to fray, and that is okay, because that's the look we're going for. It's gonna be a really natural kind of look. And then we're going to make our pillow. So we're gonna put right sides together. We take our second rug, put that over the top of the letters, leave an opening. Oh, yay, big. You know what I mean. You want to be able to get the pillow into place, and you sew all the way around the other 3 edges plus the little extra on the bottom, so you have nice corners. Then once you've got it sewn together, you're gonna flip it right sides out. Make sure you poke out those corners really nice, and you're gonna have a really substantial, nice quality pillow. And then I just took, again, my IKEA pillow that I already had on hand that was down. I shoved it in there, make sure it gets into the corner, shake it out, flatten it down, and get it all good. Now you're gonna take those rough edges and fold them into themselves. And I used some of these clips to clip them into place. What I decided to do, just so it is really sturdy on the bottom, is I took this kind of heavy baker's twine, I guess is what it's called, in like a natural finish. It was very close to the finish of the rug, and I took a giant needle and I just stitched in the ditch all the way down till it was in, knotting it off, and that's it. This pillow turned out so amazing. 2 Sort Sew rugs, which are $4.99 a piece. So I'm gonna call it like $10 for this really high-end pillow. Just put it over another pillow you have. Up next, we're doing another pillow. This one is also super easy and involves no sewing, so I'm sure you'll appreciate that. So all you're gonna do is you're gonna get some printable vinyl, and you print it out on your inkjet printer at home. This vinyl is very affordable, and this is how easy this is. You print it out, then you cut out the edge the best you can. If you leave a little white here and there, it's not gonna kill anything, but you do kind of want to get it as close as you can to the edge. If you want to run it through your Cricut machine and go through all that, you can. You don't need to. And so you're gonna have 2 pieces. This is gonna be the trickiest part, is just lining it all up. And then I did leave a little white on one side so I could overlap it nicely and not have a weird folding gap, you know. So I wanted the white underneath, and I'm gonna stack it, okay? Now I did this 2 ways, so I actually did this twice, just a little FYI, because what happened is I did take some of this heat transfer tape to kind of tape it together and did all of that. Honestly, in the end, it wasn't really necessary. You don't need the heat tape. It will be fine without it because I redid it. Because what happened is when I was ironing it the first time, you want to press down, by the way, hot iron, dry, no steam. Okay, so we want this on the dry setting. And I was pressing it, getting it real good, and I'm like, oh my word, this is looking so amazing. And then guess what I did? I hit the uncovered portion with the iron, and it kind of ruined the image. Oops. So I decided to go ahead and repeat this without all of the fancy tape and just do one side, get it all nice and lined up, get it on there, and then layer over the top with the second side, no heat tape, and it worked out great. Isn't that so cute? And I'll show you. I just made it two-sided. There's a little oopsie-daisy on it. It's not super noticeable. I probably would have been fine, but now we just have a two-sided pillow. But I absolutely adore how this turned out. It looks like it's like in the fabric. Really pretty, really classy looking. And honestly, so this one was like, I think $3.99 for the pillow cover, and then some of the printable vinyl. We're into this like $6 or $7. All you did was print, cut, and iron, and bam, you have a super classy piece of fall decor, and then you can switch it out for the next season. Next up, we are going to be using a power tool. But before we go outside, the first thing we're going to need to do is we are going to take that cutting board that we found on our shopping trip for $8.99. I have provided an image, another printable of a pumpkin shape. Okay, so you're going to print it out, you're going to tape them together, and then you're going to lay it on your cutting board wherever you want to trace this onto, and then you're going to tape it into place so it does not move. Then you're going to take some graphite paper, slide that underneath your image, and then you're going to take a stylus, or you can even use a pen or a pencil, whatever you have on hand, and trace the outside of that image onto the cutting board. And it does a fantastic job. It gives you the perfect shape, looks like you drew it on with a pencil all along. Then you peel all this stuff up. Now we're going to go outside and use a jigsaw.
Cause I've always been told that things will unfold if you keep on waiting. But then you came along and proved me all wrong. I was so mistaken. Cause you glue all the pieces back together. Yeah, you take all my...
Okay, so I've got it cut out, and I'm looking at it, and I feel like the stem's just a hair too long, so I'm just gonna cut off a little bit. That's a stylistic thing. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you think I'm crazy, but I'm gonna cut it down just a hair, and then we are gonna do a really good sanding around the edges to make sure everything's nice and smooth. We'll kind of wear down this so it's not quite as sharp, and then we'll take it from there.
To give up the ghost, no, I was so stuck. I kept on playing my part, wanted to give up cause nothing was changing. But with you it's so clear.
I taped off the stem, and I used a little gold rub and buff to make the stem gold. And then I kind of like wanted to add a little bit of texture, and so I used two colors. I used Grecian gold, that's the more yellowy one, and then an antique gold, and kind of went back and forth until it kind of had a nice, cool, metallic patina. And you know, you're not going to be really cutting on the stem, so I thought that was okay. And I actually really love how this turned out. I think it looks fantastic. I think the little gold looks nice in my kitchen because I have a lot of gold accents, and it's just a little something fun. And for $8.99 you have a very custom cutting board that is just awesome. I love it. I love how it turned out. Up next we have a cat donut holder. And I really think you're gonna like this project. Now, my mom said at a church activity like 40 years ago, they used to make these cat donut holders, and she said that they were super cute. So I sought some out, and I found one that I thought was really adorable, and I looked into it. They weren't available anymore, so I just decided to make my own and try to emulate the style. So I have a printable for you to use that will make this project so much easier. Now, because the image is split, you're gonna need to piece it together, and you just cut it out and tape it together. It's super easy. And then you're gonna need a piece of scrap wood. Now, if you don't have scrap wood in your pile, it is okay. It's somewhat easy to find if you do a search on Facebook Marketplace or even Craigslist. I don't even know if anybody uses Craigslist now. Once you have your piece of scrap wood, which will hopefully be free to you, you're gonna take the printable that I've provided, tape it down to the wood, and then put underneath it some graphite paper, and you just trace the image onto the board. Easy peasy. So for this next part, we are gonna have to go outside and get powerful. It's time to cut it out. We're gonna use a jigsaw, and basically you're just tracing it out, following along our pattern with a little saw, and we're gonna do this. So we're gonna clamp this into place, make sure it's nice and snug, and then wear gloves, it's just safer. And you just go back and forth making relief cuts and just following along the line.
If you care about me at all, you should focus on your problems, not putting the blame on me.
Just want to kind of pull you in nice and tight here, because in these little areas it's kind of hard to turn around. So all I'm doing is going in and doing many little cuts to cut out this area.
You always have to have the last word, don't you? Or you do things that you
Okay, we're sweating, but we have a really cute cat all cut out. There are a couple places where I'm gonna want to putty. Oh my goodness, I'm sweating so much. It's really hot and humid. It doesn't feel like fall. You might be saying to yourself, Natalie, there's something missing about this cat, and you're right, there is no tail, but don't you worry your pretty little head, because we are going to fix that. So we're gonna start by sanding it really good.
boundaries don't come knocking on my door, 'cause it's scary, you must know.
Look at our cute little kitty. It's looking so good. All right, I promised you a tail, so this is what we're gonna do. We are going to drill a hole for the tail right in the bottom region, and we're gonna use this wood dowel, but we need to cut it down because I think this is about 3 feet. A 18-inch dowel, about a ½ inch thick. If you want to do a little smaller dowel, you can do that. We also need a base, and so you cut that down, and that's going to be what we mount the cat to in just a minute. So then we need to drill a hole for our dowel, so make sure you have a bit that's for a ½ inch or appropriate to the dowel size that you have, and we're going to drill a hole right in the bottom area. So now that we've got the hole drilled out, before we put the dowel in place, we are going to want to attach it to the base. So I just kind of lined it up in the center where I thought it would look good on our base, and I actually didn't measure it. And then we're going to trace out the feet, and then we're going to drill it from the top side. Even though the screws are going to go in from the underside, it's just so we know it's going in the right place. You're going to want to countersink on the bottom side where the heads go in, and countersinking just basically creates a little deeper hole for the screw head, so it doesn't hobble around or scratch your table or anything like that. So then we're going to take some wood glue or Gorilla Clear Gel glue and put that on our cat feet. just took other pieces of scrap wood and kind of stacked it into place so it would line up with where we were going to screw it. And then we screwed in some long enough screws that will go in. Now you want to make sure you put those screws where it can go up into the leg and not out the foot. We don't want any screws poking out the feet. So make sure you do it towards the leg side of the cat. And that should create a really strong hold. Now with that base attached, we can do the wood dowel. And so then you just take some wood glue or clear gel glue and attach that tail and let everything fully dry. At this point, it's a good time to putty any spots that you might need to patch, you know, from the cutting. Sometimes little imperfections happen, so this would be a good time for that. Then you're gonna let it fully dry for several hours and then go back in and sand out any of that putty that you put on. And then we're gonna paint it with some chalk paint. So I just did a nice coat of chalk paint on it. If you need a second coat, feel free to use a second coat and let that fully dry. Now, if you wanted, you could distress it at this point, but I chose not to. I just chose to leave it as is. And then once the paint was dry, go back in with a matte varnish to give it a nice sheen and also a little layer of protection. The Waverly matte varnish dries very quickly and it gives it a nice finish.
If you still want it to be loved, you should never let me go. But if you want it to be loved, you should never let me go.
Our next DIY is so super easy. Anybody can do this, I promise. We're gonna do some little paper bats, and I have this shimmery metallic paper that's just like a subtle shimmer, like a metallic shimmer. And I decided to cut some bats out of that. I used my Cricut machine. And then once they're cut out, all you need to do is kind of fold the bat wings back a little bit.
Yeah, my heart belongs to you. I'm not old.
And then place them on the wall with just some putty. It looks super cute.
Somebody ought to come along and let you down, so you could see my side and how it feels to hit the ground.
Our next DIY is some wood candy corn, and for that, we're gonna go back outside. This is using a miter saw. So we are gonna see if we can take this little piece of scrap wood and turn it into some candy corns. I'm gonna first start down by cutting them into 6-inch widths. I cut lengths of 5.5 by 6, 7 by 6, and 8.5 by 6. And then what I did is cut off the edges on a 15-degree angle on all sides, just trying to get as close to the outside edge as possible. And I did that to all of them. And then I didn't want harsh pointy edges, so I took out my sander again and sanded off all of the edges, trying to round out the corners just to make sure everything was nice and rounded, nothing was sharp. We were going for a softer look, not a harsh look here. And so that was it. We got them all nice and sanded up and then cleaned up. Then I took them inside to my studio and I painted out the entire thing in a pumpkin orange chalk paint, the front, the back, the sides, all of it. And then we let that dry. It's not like super picky on like the painting, which I like. It's very forgiving. And then we did the top in a white chalk paint, and you're gonna need to do at least 2 coats of white chalk paint so it's saturated good. And then we let that dry. And then we did the bottom in a yellow. I don't remember the color, but it was a very like golden yellow, not like a lemony yellow, but a very golden yellow. And you're gonna need to do at least 2 coats of that. You'll notice that I didn't tape any lines. That's not the idea. On the real candy corn, there's a little bleed through. It's perfect. We are not looking for perfection here, which is awesome. I love that. And so once that was fully dry, we did another really good sand down of all the edges to kind of give it a rustic vibe on this one. I really think it helps add like some dimension and depth, and you'll see why when we add the antiquing wax and we go heavy around the edges, a little lighter in the middle, and what it does is it kind of creates like the illusion of a three-dimensional candy corn. And then you just keep working on that until you're happy. And you can see that I kind of went pretty heavy on the distressing, and it looks super cute, right?
But if you wanted to be loved, you should have never let me go.
Up next, I'm revisiting my scrap pile, and I found another piece of plywood and a couple of pieces of wood trim that I thought we could make a tray with. So I didn't even cut down the piece of wood. It was a good size for a tray, so I left it alone. So the only thing that we needed to do was cut down the 1x2s that I found in my scrap pile to fit. So all you need to do is lay those on top and make sure that they're nice and square, and take a pencil and make your mark of where they need to be cut. Then we take our miter saw and make those simple cuts, and then we take it inside. Then I cut out a design, and I'm gonna cut mine out in a Cricut stencil. Again, if you want to just use that graphite paper transfer technique, you could go ahead and just do the same thing that I did with the cat on the tray and just do that for this. For what I'm doing, I feel like this is gonna give us the absolute cleanest look. And so I cut out my stencil and then I weeded it. And I got it all situated. I put my transfer tape on it, peeled it back,
There was something going on, that shade of
put it on the center of our wood and made sure it was all nice and square, and then we peeled back the transfer tape and it was ready to go. Then you're going to take your scorch marker or wood burning pen, which I'll link below if you're looking for that, and fill in your stencil. And here's why I like the stencil a little bit better, if you can, is because when you fill it in, it gives you a really nice crisp edge, but you'll have to be a little bit more precise when you're using the scorch marker if you don't have that stencil. And I like to take my finger and kind of rub it in, because less is more on this burning chemical, and you don't need that much, and if you do too much, it tends to bleed into the wood. You need just enough. And then once you get the entire image filled in, then you're gonna peel back the stencil and it's ready to burn. So I take out my heat gun and we burn the image in. It doesn't take much time at all, and you can just keep burning it until the level of darkness that you choose, and a nice char is good on this one. And we're going to take some wood glue or clear Gorilla Gel, because that's all you have on hand, and flip it over, kind of line it up and put the wood glue on that way on the underside. And you'll see why this is important, because then I take out my nail gun and nail in several nails on the underside, because I just didn't want to have to patch anything on the front side, so I just did it on the underside, and that will help make it a little bit more sturdy. And then we're going to let that dry. I didn't really want to stain it traditionally, so I took some antiquing glaze and just kind of made it look like aged and worn by dark around the edges and a little bit lighter near our image and like the center areas. So we're really hitting the edges of our tray heavy, and then I take a baby wipe to help me blend it in. You might need 2 or 3 of them, because then they start to get dry, and the moisture from it does help kind of blend it out a little bit. And then we've got this kind of cool aged vibe, which I think really works well for fall. I think that it's, you know, in fall I just think of rustic things. I don't think we went overkill on it, but I think it gives that really nice warmth. And then once that is dry, go back in and kind of smooth it all out with a little sandpaper, and it will just kind of finish it all out and make it all a little bit more blended. With that done, I went back in with that matte varnish and finished that off just to seal it and kind of make it really finish.
So I won't pick up your call, I don't wanna talk about it. You know that we did say.
And then once that's dry, we can add my favorite chunky handles. I get these at Hobby Lobby. They're very inexpensive. I always buy them on 50% off, and we attach those to the center of the side. For essentially the cost of the handles and a little bit of supplies, we have a gorgeous tray, and it was less than a couple bucks. Our next DIY is this really cute pie basket that I found on our trip. When I saw it, I'm like, this is really adorable as is, but the image on the top of the basket just didn't really speak to me. You might have liked it, but I wanted to just do a simple fix to something that I liked. And so I did tape off the little leather strap. All I did is paint it 2 or 3 coats of a white chalk paint, making sure that we had an absolutely blank slate. Now, while those were drying, I went onto Etsy and found this really cute apple pie image. So all I did is upload that image onto Canva, rotate it so it was in landscape view, and then I printed it out on one of my favorite finds. You know what it is? It's water slide paper. And all you have to do is print out your image on this pretty affordable specialty paper with an inkjet printer. Then I take it outside and I did 3 coats of the triple thick crystal glaze, and I'll also link that, and you allow like 15 minutes in between each coat to fully dry. Then I went around the edges and cut off all of the excess so that it would go nicely on our round basket. And here's where the cool part of this water slide paper goes. So once you have it cut out how you like it, we submerge this paper fully in water for about 30 to 60 seconds. It can vary on time. Basically, you want it to feel like it's starting to slide around. Then you take it out of the water, place it where you want, and then very carefully slide out that white paper from behind and then smooth the whole thing out. And then I usually have a dry cloth there to kind of get rid of some of the moisture. Then you're going to want it to sit and dry for a little bit. Now, I didn't like the gloss sheen of mine because I had the chalk paint, which was a matte finish. So I took a matte finish sealer and I did 3 coats. What this will do is it will take out the shine and the variation from the chalk paint to the water slide image, but it will also protect this new image and make it look more like a piece of art. That's it for this one. It was a super easy fix, and now it's more personalized to me. The colors from the image still matched the plaid fabric that was in the basket, and it is so adorable. Have you ever flipped over a bundt cake pan? Well, I have, and I kind of thought it looked like a pumpkin. So when I came across this one on our thrifting adventure, I don't remember how much it was, but it was like $2 or something like that. I'm like, we're gonna make a pumpkin out of that. And so that's what I set out to do. And the first thing I did is flip it over and spray on a primer. That way it had better adhesion for the other paint. Then to add some dimension, I just did a really light coat of yellow, and then I let that dry. And then next up, I did a really good coverage in a burnt orange color and made sure that it was completely saturated in that with several coats. You don't want to totally saturate it when you're doing it. Otherwise, if you use spray paint before, you'll know that it will run and that will kind of ruin the look. Then we let that fully dry. Once the paint was fully dried, I took a sanding sponge to it and sanded it through, and then you could see a little peekaboo of that yellow, and it really kind of added some nice dimension to our little metal pumpkin. Next up, I found this wooden meat tenderizing mallet in a thrift store, and it was marked for $4, but it was on a 50% off sale, so it was only $2. But when I looked at it, I'm like, that would make a really cute stem for our pumpkin. So I cut off part of the handle for our stem, but then we needed to attach it to this metal pan, and so I had a little round disc, a wood disc. So what I ended up doing is drilling a hole in the handle and through the little disc, and we drilled in a screw, and that would kind of just give it some stability. But that wasn't it. So I slipped that up through the hole, but I needed to add some hot glue first. And then I glued the bundt cake pan to our little wood stem, and there we had a stem. And I didn't do anything to the mallet because I really liked the aged look to it. Once we had our stem attached, we needed some greenery. And here's where keeping all of your little extra pieces of greenery from your cast off floral projects pays off, because I took some greenery that I pulled off in our recent IKEA hack episode. I had like a pumpkin and it had like tons of green foliage on the bottom, and I was like, I didn't want it all, but it was perfect for this project because then I just hot glued it into place and turned it into the greenery for our cute little bundt cake pan pumpkin, and it looks so cute. Next up is this silverware crate, and I saw that and I'm like, you know, the shape of this is really cute. The little design on it, it's a little dated with the pinks and the blues. It just is very reminiscent of like 1980s, maybe even early 1990s. And so what I did initially is I wanted to richen up the handle a little bit. So I just took some antiquing glaze, rubbed that on the turned handle and let that dry. Then I took a piece of paper and some tape and taped off that handle really, really well. And then I took it outside, and first we sanded off a little bit. We sanded off that image a little bit and wiped that down. But then I pulled out that white spray paint again and spray painted a couple of, we had like 2 or 3 good coats and let them dry in between. Once it was fully dry, I went back in with a sander and distressed the edges, and it looked really, really good. I really could see myself using this any time of year, fall or not. Fall, you do have a lot of gatherings. Going into Christmas, you have a lot of gatherings, and I thought this would be a really cute tote to put the silverware in, and I wanted to just keep it neutral, so that's all I did with it.
'Cause you glue all the pieces back together.
For our next thrift flip, I found this wreath. It was a fall wreath, and it was looking a little tired, you know. It had seen better days, but I could see through it that it had some potential. Then I also found an oval shaped art piece, and I was like, maybe this could work. So the first thing we're gonna do is totally disassemble this art piece, and I had to like unscrew the screws, which I hung on to, and I'm gonna use in just a second the screws. So you even keep the little things that you might not think you need, they're handy. And then once I got that all disassembled and just had the frame, which by the way was just kind of a cheap plastic, it was nothing super fancy. Then I took some Dollar Tree pearl bead strips or whatever they're called, and I ran a bead around the inside rim, and I thought that this would just give it a little bit more dimension and interest. Then I went outside and spray painted it in a flat white spray paint. Now, you're gonna see that I use a lot of flat white spray paint in this episode, but it all kind of works out and it all looks different, I promise. So then I took it back into my studio and I took some silver rub and buff and did like a light dusting on it to give it some antiquing and aged, kind of like a pressed tin look that you would see, but it worked out really good. Once we had that ready to go, we are gonna take the other wreath and pull off all of the things. It was not worth redoing that. I mean, I could have redone that, but I had a better idea. So I plucked off all the gourds, all the pumpkins, all of the greenery, and I set it aside. The only thing that I didn't keep were the little raffia things. I wasn't a fan, so those went into the trash, but I did hang on to the wreath form and set that aside. Then I also bought an additional bunch of flowers at Walmart that were kind of in a similar tone and some acorns, and I had a few odds and ends on hand as well. And then I started to assemble a wreath out of this oval frame, and I just did it kind of offset on the bottom left hand side, and I just started gluing everything on really, really good, and I just assembled it. And there's no rhyme or reason. You just kind of spread things out and make it look look good. And then at the very end, I took a little bit of ribbon that was kind of like this really natural with a little lace edging on it. And I just twist tied a couple of little things of that and tucked them into the arrangement too, just to kind of soften up the look. And that's it. And then we gave this sad wreath a new life in a little different way. And it looks amazing. And you have a wreath using a frame, which I thought was kind of fun. One of the sections that I always hit when I go thrifting is wood items, because there's just a lot you can do with them, and a lot of times you can have interesting things, interesting textures and dimensions. But I found this one tray and it was very inexpensive. I think it was like $2.99, and I thought it was cool as is. So the only thing I really did is cleaned it up a little bit, and then I took some handles that I picked up at Hobby Lobby, 50% off of course, so that they were originally at $3.99, so $2 a piece, and then I screwed them onto either handle. Now you could have just left it alone, maybe you would have done that, but I like handles on it, and I thought it added a little bit of interest. And then I took the screws from that art piece, if you remember, and used them to attach the handles. They were the perfect size and everything. And then I just took some black paint and painted over the top of the heads of the screws so it all blended together, and that's it. And then you have this really cool rustic fall serving tray, or a serving tray you can use literally any time of year, and I just love it. I think it turned out really cute. The little extra, like I said, sometimes it's just little tweaks that really make a difference. I like it. I think it looks good. Next up, I found this kind of like yellowy orange pumpkin, and I also found a couple of large bunches of sunflowers, and I'm like, maybe a pumpkin arrangement is in order. So the first thing I did is what? I spray painted that yellowy orange pumpkin into a flat white spray paint, and once that was dry, I took it in and we put in some floral foam and made sure it was nice and snug, and then I shoved in our bunches of daisies. The first one I just put in the whole bunch, and then the second one I kind of clipped apart and made it work. And then I had some other things already on hand, and then I also got those little kind of, they look like apple, like little mini apple berry type things from the Dollar Tree. And I just put together this arrangement with stuff that I had on hand, plus the sunflowers. And I was really pleasantly surprised. I think that this looks really cute. It's gonna make a great arrangement for the fall get-togethers, a great centerpiece. I love it. I think it looks so good. It was very inexpensive. I think all in all, I'm into it $10 to $12, and I know that you would be paying a ton more if you just went in and bought that somewhere. So give floral arranging a try. It's not really that difficult. On my thrifting adventures, I came across a couple of ceramic pumpkins and gourds, and I took these couple of ceramic gourds and pumpkins outside, spray painted them in a couple of coats of this white flat spray paint, let it dry. Then I came back into my studio and took some gold rub and buff, and I believe this was an antique gold, and I rubbed it on the stem. And then to get into the little nooks and crannies and little tight areas, I took a little tiny paintbrush and got into those little tricky areas. And then of course you let it sit for a second. Once it is dry, which happens pretty quickly, go back in and buff it out, and that was it for this. And I really love this fresh new look on the gourd. I think it looks super cute, super chic, and I love it. Okay, so when I first came across this candy corn tray, I was like, oh, this must be the year of the candy corn. But I saw it and it was 99 cents, and I liked it as is. I thought it was cute. And I had an image that I used in a DIY back a couple of years for Halloween, and I decided to reuse it. Repetition is good. I cut out a decal that said trick or treat, and I did it in permanent vinyl because honestly, you can use permanent vinyl on a vehicle, run it through the car wash, through the elements, and I figured that would hold up really great on a tray that I could use. And I just, you know, weeded the vinyl, added the transfer tape, peeled it back, put it right on the center of the tray, and it went from a really cute tray to an even cuter tray, in my opinion. I really think this is super cute. I'm really excited to serve treats on it. I loved it. I think it's so cute, and it's gonna be really fun. It goes really cute with my little cat, and I just love it, and I think it's gonna be fun this fall season.
I feel so free.
So when you're thrifting, sometimes you need to just kind of look at things in a whole new light. Well, I saw these vintage tennis rackets. Maybe we could turn this into a simple pumpkin. I sawed off the handle and left just a little bit as a stem, and I was like, immediately I saw a pumpkin. Now I thought about spray painting it, but I actually already thought that it was orange enough, and it had that little bit of orange on the stem, and I was like, you know what, let's keep this super easy peasy and not overcomplicate it, because this looks good as is. If it was like a crazy other color, then maybe I would paint it orange or whatever, and maybe you would have painted it orange anyways, and that would be totally fine. Then again, with those leaf cast-offs, you got to keep those. They come in handy. And I just had 3 of them, and I clipped them and glued them down. And then I took some of this, I don't know, it's like a twine that's wired that you can get from Dollar Tree. And I wrapped that around the top of the stem and twisted it, and then I made little curly cues with the twine to mimic kind of like a vine look. And I also added a couple of spots of hot glue to just kind of hold it into place. And then I took one little tiny sunflower and glued that to kind of hide some of the ugly. And here you have kind of a really cute, kitschy pumpkin that was from a tennis racket. And that could be really fun if you're really into tennis, but even if you're not, like a vintage tennis racket pumpkin, I just think it's fun. I think it's cute.
Yeah, you take all my wrongs and make them better.
For this next piece, you could have taken this a lot of different directions, but I found just some random sign in a thrift store for $2.99, and it was pretty good sized, about 12 by 12, and it was wood and substantial. What I decided to do is spray paint the entire thing. It took 3 coats because it was kind of a dark color, so I did 3 good coats of flat white spray paint. Then to kind of zhuzh it up a little bit, I added a gold border with some rub and buff, and that dries pretty instantaneously. And rub and buff, okay? So you rub it on, let it dry a little bit longer, you go back in and buff it out, and it has this really pretty gold sheen. I love rub and buff. Then I took some gold foil washi tape and I marked out a grid for a tic-tac-toe game, and that's what we're gonna be making. And then I took our washi tape and put it down as our game board. And then for our game pieces, we're just gonna take 2 different kinds of small pumpkins. I got some of them at the Dollar Tree, some of them at Hobby Lobby, and we're gonna use them in different colors as the X's and O's, and you have a fall-themed tic-tac-toe game that I thought would be really fun when you're having all of your fall get-togethers from Halloween to Thanksgiving. Fun game for grown-ups or kids alike, and I just thought that that would be really fun, and it's kind of cute. And it was all thrifted items except for the pumpkins, but those were pretty affordable, so hopefully you'll forgive me for that. I wanted to try out a new technique that I had seen somewhere. I don't even remember where I saw the initial video, but when I saw it, I was like, I have never seen anything like that, and that is fun. For that, we are going to go into the kitchen where it's a little safer to do it because we are going to be playing with fire. So I have brought it in my kitchen. Outside would work good. I would not recommend doing this on your kitchen table or your craft table if it's wood, because we are playing with fire. So here we go. This is what we're going to do. We are going to take a napkin. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this because it's unnecessary and it will get in the way actually. And then we're gonna need 2 napkins. For those of you who are curious, I got these napkins at Hobby Lobby. Then what we're gonna want to do is try to get just the top layer of this napkin. So you're gonna separate it like so. There is another layer, and it's really important that you only get the top layer because otherwise it won't work right. Okay, so there we go. And tissue paper I bet would work as well. And then, because we're gonna need 2 here. So you can see that the word is kind of long, so we'll put a seam right here at the K. The secret to this is we are going to take some Mod Podge, squeeze some Mod Podge on here. You want to be pretty generous with the Mod Podge. We can do a little cleanup later. Just kind of brush it out. And then you are going to tap, tap, tap the napkin into place. Work quickly here. Now we're gonna try to line this up. And while it's still wet, you want to do a rough cut around the edges of your words. You also want to poke some holes in the middle of, like in the middle of the A, you want to poke a hole in there. So, and you're gonna see why in just a second. Now we're gonna play with fire. Kids, do not try this at home. Only adults under supervision. We're gonna move anything that's paper. We're gonna focus doing this over my granite countertops. And what we're gonna do is light it on fire. Oh, look at that. And what it does is it gives us a perfect edge. Can you believe that? Isn't that crazy? It just is burning all the way around. And if it stops, move your hand. You don't want to get burned. And if it stops in an area, we'll go back and hit that area. But it gives us, see, it just went out. So now we're gonna do it on here. And you can see, look how it is getting right up to the edge. Isn't this the coolest thing you've ever seen? And then you want to do this while the Mod Podge is wet because it will extinguish it. It's so awesome, right? How fun is that? And then to clean up the edges, we'll continue to do this, but just to show you, to clean up the edges, you just take a paintbrush and we can just brush it off and clean up the edges. And isn't that the coolest technique ever? This was my first attempt at this, and so I did get a couple of burn marks, but you know what? I think it adds to the rustic nature of this, so it's not a big deal. And now I'm just gonna take some crystal clear coat and we are going to spray a sealer. There you go. Easy peasy. Here it is. And now isn't it so cute? Now you could do any word you want. You could do this for any season or not. So you might be seeing me use this technique in the future. I think that it is so fun and it definitely lends itself for a rustic fall appearance. And I just think this is adorable. Isn't that a cool hack? I wanted to tap a pumpkin. Now it's a little early in my area to find a real pumpkin, so I got this foam one that we are going to tap, and I have a way that we're gonna make it food safe. Let's do this one and I'll give you some tips about doing a fresh pumpkin along the way. First thing, we are going to take a bowl and trace it on top. And then I have a hot knife already heated up here, and we're gonna use that to cut through, and hopefully it will make it super easy. Now, how do we make this food safe? I did this similar idea on a regular pumpkin for my sister's wedding several years ago. It was a fall wedding. It was really cool. We did some soup in a pumpkin. We are going to line it with a crock pot liner because these are food safe. And so what we're gonna do is we are gonna just push this down. And you could use like a really big 5-gallon Ziploc bag. And we're gonna need to push this down as much as possible, but we don't want it to like cave in. So we're gonna take some little short pins. They look like this, and we're gonna just go around the rim and push it into place. And so that will kind of hold it into place for us. So we're gonna just fold this and pin it all the way around and try to push as much of the bag in as possible. We're kind of just pleating it because it's obviously going to bunch up. So we've got the top cut, we've got it lined, and now it's food safe. You don't necessarily have to do that with the liner for a fresh pumpkin, but you may not like the flavor of a fresh pumpkin, so you may want to do it anyways. And then like every time you reuse this one, you can just change out the bag, and it shouldn't be too much trouble. So you have a completely food safe place to put your beverage. And so now we've got to decide where we want to tap it. We're gonna put it kind of towards the bottom. This is a kit that I got off of Amazon. I'll link it in the description box below. I imagine that you could use any kind of drink dispenser, but this one was made for watermelon, so I thought it would work on a pumpkin. So we're gonna just mark where we're gonna put that, and then it comes with a kind of, it looks very much like an apple core that I have in my possession, so I bet that's what it actually is. And we're gonna just use this as a saw and bore the hole for it, and it should be exactly the right size. And then we're gonna take our tap, we're gonna shove this through the hole, make sure there's a hole just big enough for us to put it through. Actually, the tighter you can get it around it so it snugs on there, the liner bag, the better. That way it's not leaking out into the foam pumpkin. If it does, you can probably rinse it out after the fact, but you want to keep as much of the beverage in the plastic bag as possible. So we're gonna try to get that nice and snug on there. And then we're gonna just take the back on the inside of the pumpkin and thread that on, and that's it. And so I really think this is exciting and a fun idea here, and I'm going to show you on our next hack just how it works. But isn't it cute? It looks super cute here. For our next hack, we are going to be doing an easy butterbeer. I just thought it would be fun to throw in a little fun fall drink. Okay, so for my next hack, we are gonna be doing a fall simmer pot. For this hack, what you're gonna need is an apple, an orange, a couple of cinnamon sticks, and vanilla. You may have all of these in your kitchen right now. You are going to make a simmer pot. This is great for parties or just to have the fall scent in your home, but this will do the trick. So what I did is I took a couple of apples that were kind of going by the way. They were a little bit too soft to enjoyably eat, but not quite like horrible. And so I just stuck them on my apple peeler core slicer and just did a pretty spiral with them. And that was for looks, but also to kind of open up the apple. You don't need to do it that way. You can just chop up an apple and throw it in a pot. I just thought it would be fun. And then I sliced up an orange. And so it was 2 apples, 1 large orange. And then I put that in a pot. And then I added 2 cinnamon sticks and a cap full of vanilla. So it was probably, I don't know, like a generous teaspoon of vanilla. And then I added 4, I don't even know. I didn't measure the water, I just added some water, and this all went in my beautiful pumpkin pot that I love. And then you just bring it to a boil and then turn down the heat to a low simmer, and you can keep it going all day by adding additional water. Make sure you don't leave it unwatched, you know, you don't want to burn it. So just make sure that there's always a little bit of water and keep it nice and slow. And I promise you, your house will smell absolutely amazing with this. This next hack would be great for a party or just if you're feeling festive. All you need is some small cookie cutters. So I found this little mini pumpkin. I was able to cut 6 little pumpkins out of 1 slice of cheese. If you're very careful, you can do that as well. And then just do a little cheese and cracker plate. This could be just for you to feel festive, or it could be for a fun party idea. And you can do all kinds of different fall leaves, you know, maple leaves, anything. And no need to get rid of the cast-offs because they make a really great treat for your dog to get them to do little tricks for you. And according to the AKC, it is okay to give your dogs a little cheese, or you can just save it and use it for yourself as well. But isn't that just a fun, easy fall hack? For my next hack, it's an easy fall napkin ring idea, and I just quickly put together an easy table setting to go along with it. So for this hack, I took another orange and I made it into slices, and I ended up dehydrating these oranges in my dehydrator. But if you don't have a dehydrator, you can dry out oranges in the oven. It's a little faster, it makes them a little bit darker in color, but you can get a very good result with that as well. But I went ahead and dehydrated mine on a dehydrator, and what's really nice about that is it keeps them really nice and flat, and it really keeps that orange color. That's just kind of a fun thing. Then you're gonna take some paper towel holders. It could be the inside of a wrapping paper tube or a toilet paper roll. All you need to do is cut it about 2 inches and then wrap it in whatever you have. You could wrap it in burlap, you could wrap it in rope. I had this kind of fun cheetah print roll that I picked up at Hobby Lobby, and I already had it on hand, so I just grabbed it, and I thought that might be kind of a fun little sassy element on mine. So I just cut it out about 2 inch width of it, and then used a hot glue gun to start it, and then I rolled it on and finished it out with hot glue. When it was cool, I folded it back and cut off the excess, and then I took a little length of rope. I didn't measure it at all, like a twine, a heavier twine. I thought mine was a little bit thick. I'd probably go with the baker's twine. It would be a little bit better, I think, ultimately. I mean, it really did turn out cute, and it's not a big deal, but I think it would, if I were to guess, about 8 inches, and then you can kind of cut off the excess. And then you're gonna poke 2 holes in your orange, and you're gonna thread that rope through the orange to kind of hold it in place. Okay, so with the orange slice on, we are going to take some eucalyptus sprigs. I found this in the wedding section of Hobby Lobby, and I just clipped off a couple of those, but you could use actually dried eucalyptus or whatever greenery you would like to use. And then I bought a whole bulk thing of cinnamon sticks because I've been using a ton of them this time of year, and it's a better deal to buy them in bulk. And then I took 1 cinnamon stick and put that on top of the eucalyptus and tied a little bow. And then of course, any of the twine that is excess, then we can just cut that off. And that is a very quick, isn't that so chic? Now I put this on a white plate with a white linen napkin. And then I found these little wood thankful pieces. They're meant for table decor at Hobby Lobby. They were 50% off and super, super inexpensive. I think the whole bag was $4. And I think this makes an adorable table setting. You could use this at any of your fall gatherings, but it would especially look super cute for Thanksgiving, which is still a while away, so you've got some time to put this together. This next fall hack is a super easy way to upgrade an existing wreath that you already have, like an everyday wreath. So I bought a pack of a whole bunch of little tiny miniature pumpkins. All you have to do is print this out, and then I just cut it out into two little pieces, the give and the thanks, and you're gonna pick out two miniature pumpkins, one slightly larger than the other, but not much. And then you're going to take this printout and tape it to the middle of that tiny pumpkin. And then you're gonna take some graphite paper, some people call it carbon paper. It doesn't really matter, it's all the same thing, really. And you slide that underneath this printout, and then you trace it onto your pumpkin. And then you take a fine tipped Sharpie and go over that transferred lettering. And you might want to do it a couple of times to really richen it up. And it says, give thanks. Then you're gonna pop out the stem of the bottom pumpkin, which will be the slightly larger pumpkin, and get rid of it. And then you're gonna take a wood skewer and shove that into the bottom pumpkin and up through the top. And then we're gonna attach the tinier pumpkin, the one that says give, on top of that. And then any excess of the skewer, then just clip that off. And then all you need to do is very gently shove that into your boxwood wreath, and all of a sudden you have an instant and very cute fall themed wreath, and you didn't have to buy a new one. You have about 50 cents worth of pumpkins on the wreath, and it is super easy, right? So I hope that fall wreath hack worked well for you. Well, you can't have fall without a little candy corn. And so if you like candy corn, you're gonna like this next hack. So I've seen this around, you've probably seen this around too, but I just wanted to do a little refresher because sometimes you don't need to go super crazy to really get a cute fall centerpiece or accent. This is using candy corn in two different ways. Now, the first way I did is I just took a glass bowl, put a candle in the center of it, and then poured in a whole bunch of candy corn in the base. And you could just leave it like that. You could do several of them. You could do them in different sizes. You could, like I did here, place it up on a white pedestal base or any kind of pedestal base to kind of give it a little bit of height, and then do several smaller ones. But this is just to give you an idea. So you could do one with a candle in the center and it looks super, super cute. But like I said, this is two different ways. And so the second option is taking another base. This vase I had on hand, I've had it for a while, and I just thought it would be really cute. I like that it has a little pedestal base on it already on this glass vase. And then you can take any kind of simple glass or canning jar like I did here, and you put it in the center of the other vase, and then you fill in the gap between the glass and the vase and fill it full of candy corn. And then I have these fall leaves that I ordered off of Amazon. And then all we have to do is put your fall leaves in the center of the vase. Now you could do a whole floral arrangement if you wanted to, but keeping simple fall leaves looks so good with this setup with the candy corn. It screams fall. And you could use live fall leaves if you have access to them, or if not, if you don't have access to them like me, you can order them off of Amazon. So there's a lot of options, but I really think this is a super, super cute look. I love it. And it's super easy. So this next hack I have done on my channel before, but it was a few years ago. That is to upgrade a store-bought cupcake. I've done a similar idea on my last Christmas hack episode one. I like to zhuzh up store-bought cupcakes because sometimes you're in a hurry, but you want something that looks cute and custom, like you slaved over it for hours. So I picked up these chocolate cupcakes from the grocery store, and what you're gonna wanna do is throw them in the freezer for about 30 minutes. This helps to really make the frosting solid for this next part. And then you pull them out, and then you can take some kitchen scissors and clip off the frosting from the cupcake, and then you can take one of your apple cores and make a hole in your cupcake. And then I have this peanut butter sauce that I ordered off of Amazon. Oh my word, there's the thunder again. And then you can fill the inside of your cupcake with this Reese's peanut butter sauce, and then you can replace the frozen frosting right back into place. To give it a fall flair, we are going to make these little edible acorns and they are so cute. So all you need to do is take a Hershey's Kiss. You can use the milk chocolate, or I use the dark chocolate ones in this one. And in the past, I've used Nutter Butters, the little miniature Nutter Butters, not the big ones, the round ones that you can get in a bag. They didn't have them at my store when I went to buy them this time, so I substituted out some peanut butter stuffed Ritz crackers. It also tasted really good and worked out really well as well. So both of them work. Then you just need to melt a few chocolate chips, and then you dip your Hershey's Kiss in the melted chocolate chips and touch that to either your Ritz cracker, your mini Ritz cracker, or your mini Nutter Butter. And then on the other side, you take a regular chocolate chip, dip that in the chocolate, and that becomes your top. And then you have these really cute edible acorns that you can put on top of your cupcakes, and that's what really brings in that fall vibe to these cupcakes. Now you could add some chopped up nuts or drizzle on some melted peanut butter or whatever you want to do to zhuzh them up. I just left it on these chocolate ones plain. But I wanted to share with the ones that I have shared in the past with you, because I have done this with a peanut butter frosting and it definitely pops off and like is more noticeable on that peanut butter frosting. So you could make a homemade cupcake, a chocolate cupcake, do peanut butter frosting, and then put the edible acorns on top of that. And there's just a lot of options for you on that. So there's a couple of ways to zhuzh up some cupcakes, give them the fall flair, and I hope you enjoy that. Next up, I am using up some more of those apples that are about to go by the way, but not quite mushy. You don't have to use those kind of apples for this next one. You can use perfectly good apples as well, and it will work. I just used some Gala apples, and I took some tea lights that I picked up at Dollar Tree and traced them out right in the center of the apple. And then you want to get rid of the stem beforehand. I learned this the hard way. Just get rid of the stem first, and then you take a knife and just cut around that where you traced the tea light to be. And then once you've traced that out with a knife cut, then you go back in with a spoon and scoop out the center, and then you can shove your little tea light right in the top of an apple, and it looks super cute, right? Then you just need to find a wood tray or some kind of tray. I used wood because I really feel like that natural element really helps play up the fall vibe to this. And then I went out and I clipped a few magnolia leaves, which are richly abundant here in my neighborhood in Florida, but you could use whatever greenery you have access to. Lemon leaf works good. It's also known as salal, or actual clippings from an apple tree. If you're lucky to have an orchard, you can just grab some of those. It doesn't matter. The idea is just throwing together a simple yet elegant centerpiece idea here, so nothing complicated. So then you just line up your apples on this wood tray, tuck in some greenery of your choice that you're able to easily find around you. Don't spend any money if you can help it, and then just tuck that into place. And then to up the ante of the fall vibe and scents, you take some of those cinnamon sticks from that bulk cinnamon that you bought and tuck them around the arrangement at different angles, and voila. That literally takes no experience. You light the candles and you have a gorgeous fall centerpiece. Now, this is probably not something that's going to last for a long amount of time. Obviously the apple will start to decay. I don't know, maybe you could do it with a foam or faux apple and it could last a little bit longer, but this is definitely something for like if you're gonna entertain or have a nice dinner party or whatnot. You want a simple yet elegant arrangement, you can go ahead and do this hack, light the candles. So for our first Walmart fall DIY decor idea, I wanted to use these sticker strips here, these adhesive gemstones. So I decided to combine these stickers with these wood canvases that she sent me, and I'm also going to couple it with the larger version of these canvases. I'm gonna just reuse this from an old DIY, and we are going to make a tiered tray. Now I'm gonna use a wood dowel. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just take this section right here, go cut it off on my miter saw. If you don't have a miter saw, feel free to use a hand saw. And we are gonna take that section. And then all we're gonna do is kind of create a tiered tray using that little spindle. We're gonna run a screw up from the bottom, and then we're gonna screw it in from the top, and then we are gonna just kind of patch and putty that one from the top, so you may want to countersink it a little bit down. And then we are going to let the putty dry, and then I'm gonna just take some scrap wood pieces from my scrap pile, just cut off like little 1-inch squares, and we are going to create some little feet for our tier tray. I'm just gonna use some wood glue and some finish nails to hold those into place, and that's it for the construction of our tier tray. Then we're going to take these gemstones that are our mystery box item, and we are going to run them on the entire exterior banding of our tiered tray. I don't think you will need to glue these into place. I think by the time we paint this out, then it will be fine. And what we're gonna do is we are gonna take some mineral chalk paint and kind of chalk paint out the entire tiered tray. And then we're gonna let that dry. And then we're gonna go back in with the truffle paint that Courtney sent. We're gonna water down that a little bit and kind of just dry brush that on, and then I take a little damp cloth and kind of blend it out a little bit and let that dry. And then once that's dry, we're gonna go back over with a little white wax, and by the time we're finished, it's gonna have kind of a weathered wood look, which I think is perfect for this fall time. And I'm just gonna go ahead and use this as a cupcake stand. Lots of treats this time of year, and I bought these cupcakes at the store and then decided to embellish them just a little bit. I love how this cupcake stand turned out. It's so cute, so fall. But what do you think of this DIY? So for our next Walmart fall DIY, I'm going to be using the little mini popsicle sticks and then these little circle rounds. And what I'm gonna be doing is kind of reminiscent of a cake stand that I did like 2 falls ago. It was a knockoff of a Magnolia Home cake stand. It was really cute. And this we're gonna do kind of on a smaller scale. And we are gonna be making some little mini cupcake stands to kind of go along with our tiered tray. I needed it to be a little bit thicker than how thin these were. So I'm just gonna layer 3 of them together by squeezing some wood glue in between each layer, making sure they're really lined up, and then we're going to take some little clamps and clamp it into place and let it dry. And we're going to do that on 3 and then 3, and we will use up our 6 circles on 2. After our wood round dries, we are going to take some Gorilla Glue and some hot glue and glue on these little tiny candlesticks that I pick up. I think it's at Hobby Lobby, and they come in like 4 or 6 in a pack. Super cute, super fun. I've used these a lot. And now we have a little pedestal base. Then we're gonna take out our mini little popsicle sticks and we are gonna cut off maybe like a 1/2 inch, not very much, of the ends using one of my favorite tools, which are these miter shears. They cut on like different angles and whatnot, but they cut through thin wood super easy. So this is a really handy tool to have around. And then we are going to hot glue on all of these craft sticks all of the way around. Now to kind of just add another little embellishment, we're going to take some of those gemstone strips that we used on our tiered tray and go around the top edge of that, and that will finish it off. And then we're gonna just go ahead and repeat the same paint technique as we did with our first project. And then we're gonna paint it out in mineral chalk paint. And then we're gonna let that dry. And then we're gonna go over the top, repeat the same technique we did before, and we do some dry brushing of the truffle chalk paint. And kind of blend that out, and then do some dry brushing of the white wax and kind of blend that out to kind of get that weathered look. I think it's perfect and rustic for this time of year. You could display some more of those cupcakes on these little cupcake stands, or you can put a little decorative pumpkin or something on the top and use it as a decorative stand. But either way, super easy, super cute. I love the look of this. All right, next up, we are going to use a project that didn't kind of work out. And these are actually like Dollar Tree things. So here's what I came up with to fix it. First off, we need to kind of fill in some of these nail holes. We're gonna sand that down, put a little putty in it, let it dry, and then re-sand it down again. And then what we're gonna do is, I had this little wood crate that's been sitting in my stash for a while. I picked it up, I don't remember where, but you can find a crate like this a lot of different places. And then what I thought we could do is paint out our pumpkins in a black chalk paint and let that dry. And then we're gonna take this crate and kind of stain it out, whatever color stain you want. I'm gonna use this Kona gel stain that I use a lot. I really like the way this looks, and we're gonna let that fully dry. We're gonna take our black chalkboard pumpkins and we are gonna glue one on either side and then one layered up in the center. And then I just made a stencil on my Cricut machine that says locally grown pumpkin. It's like a pumpkin patch stencil. We're gonna use 2 layers of white chalk paint and let that fully dry. Pull back the stencil, and then we're gonna give the whole thing kind of a good sanding, give it a little rustic feel to it. And then we are going to stack in some cute orange burlap pumpkins that I had on hand that I've used in the past. And a little trick here for you, if you don't want to fill the whole thing up with pumpkins, it might be a little bit more affordable. You can take something and fill up underneath it. You can use it functionally or decoratively, however you imagine, and it's super cute. Next up, we're gonna be using this plastic cereal bowl and this little tin container here and the pumpkins, and then I'm also gonna use little truffle chalk paint. We are going to deconstruct and remove the rope off of this pot. I lightly sand down where we removed the rope from, and then I took some mineral colored chalk paint and do a couple of coats of that on our little white pot and let that dry. then we're going to take a little bit of black chalk paint and mix it in with some baking soda. And that will just give us something a little hardier and add a little texture to this plastic bowl. I also think that the baking soda will help it stick to the plastic bowl a little better. We are going to paint the inside and the outside in this paint solution. And then we're going to only just kind of paint a little bit in on this, and then we'll leave this bottom portion mostly unpainted, and you'll see why in just a second. And then once our bowl is fully dried from the paint, we are going to take some Gorilla Glue and some Gorilla Hot Glue and glue this tin can to the plastic bowl to create a little pedestal stand. And then we're going to just fill it with this bag of pumpkins, maybe add a little bit of greenery to kind of give it a fun little feel. For our next Walmart themed fall DIY, we are going to be using the little embroidery hoop and this little pumpkin pick. Now, my idea for this is to kind of take apart the embroidery hoop, take some of that truffle chalk paint and create kind of like a stain by adding a little bit of water to it. And then we are going to set that aside to dry. While that's drying, we're going to take some of this canvas drop cloth and we are simply going to tear like a 2.5 inch strip by maybe like 10 to 12 inches. I have a free printable that looks like this. It says thankful, grateful, blessed. And we are going to take some graphite paper that looks like this and this printable, and we are going to kind of center it just a tad off center. And we are going to put the graphite paper behind our printable, lay it over the top of our canvas strip and use a stylus, and then we are simply going to trace on the lettering, pushing it down with a stylus, and then the graphite paper will transfer that image onto our canvas. This works sometimes and it doesn't work sometimes, but usually on this kind of flat, thin canvas drop cloth, it works just fine, and it did in this case. And then what we're going to do is we are going to take a bronze Sharpie. Now we're going to trace over the top of our transferred image using the Sharpie to create like a nice dark print. And then we're going to take our dried embroidery hoop and put our little canvas strip in between the two pieces, kind of center it up, and then put our outside hoop over the top of it, kind of holding it into place, and then tighten that up. Our pick, which we are going to just hot glue into place. I have a couple of extra leaves that I might also hot glue and tuck into there that were in my stash. And that's it. This has kind of got like a boho feel, but it looks good in any kind of like farmhouse decor. I think it's got a lot of flexibility in this design. I really like how this turned out. I think it's super cute. Next up, we're going to use the tea towel, and we are going to add a little ribbon banding on the bottom of our tea towel. Using some iron-on hem tape to hold the ribbon into place, I just used my Easy Press because I next attempted to use an iron-on decal, and for whatever reason, I could not get the stuff to stick down for the life of me. I don't know if there was some kind of weird solution on the tea towel, but it did not work. And this is not my first rodeo, so I don't actually know what happened here, but I could see the outline where it was supposed to be, so I just went ahead and did the same technique I did on the canvas and used the same Sharpie to get my image on there. So if you have any ideas of what went wrong for me, let me know in the comment section below. And here we have a really cute, really easy fall themed tea towel, and you can see that I've displayed it on the end of my kitchen. Super cute, super easy. Love this DIY. So now what do we have left? We still have the buttons and the yarn and those darn rubber scrubber things. Okay, so here's what I came up with. This is the ever popular Dollar Tree pumpkin. They always have these in stock. I don't think I've ever seen them out of these. They seem like they have an endless supply of these at the Dollar Tree. And we are gonna use this, and I think it's gonna turn out really, really cute. The first thing we're gonna do is kind of pull out this pumpkin stem here and set it aside. We don't need it. We're gonna be doing something a little bit different. This is a hot pen. I've used it a lot on my channel. It's not very expensive, and if you're ever working with styrofoam and you need to cut through it, this is the tool for you. You plug it in, it gets really hot, and then all we're gonna do is we're gonna take the hot pen, shove it down in through the middle where the stem would be, and out through the bottom, creating like a way for a very long needle. This is like an upholstery needle. And we are going to take our yarn and we are going to thread that through our needle. And then we are going to thread it through and give ourselves a lot of excess. And then we're gonna kind of string it up and down, in through the hole, out through and go all the way around the pumpkin, completely wrapping the yarn all the way through. Now you could save a lot of time and just kind of wrap the yarn on the outside, kind of overlapping it, which is what I ended up doing in the end, because I realized very quickly that this was going to use up way too much yarn and I would run out and not have enough to finish my DIY. But I actually do think it would look cuter if you have enough yarn to go all the way through around using the original method. We may need to hot glue some on the bottom here and there if like we run out of yarn, but once we have it fully wrapped, we've got a pretty cute yarn pumpkin. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little wood dowel that we've stained in that truffle stain again and shove that into the center and use that as our little stem. Now about those silicone scrubbers, okay, this is where this is gonna come into play. We are gonna actually take kind of the mushroom colored one, and we are going to take one of our maple leaves that I had from our other project, and I just am gonna lay that over the top of it and use that as a guide to cut out. Then we are going to use this as our leaf. And then we're gonna take that little circular opening, loop it over the top of our wood dowel and put the rubber scrubby leaf into place. And then we're gonna take some of these wood buttons and kind of glue that as a little bit of embellishment. You can also take some jute twine and kind of like make some knots to act as like some vine and kind of embellish it however you like. What do you think of my little silicone scrubber leaf? I think it turned out pretty darn cute. This one really stretched me, and I almost thought this might be the first one that really stumped me, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. What do you think? All right, so we are gonna be doing some trick-or-treat tags, and I'm excited about this because they're really cute. I had some scrap wood that I took outside and cut down into tags. They call it a 1x6, but it's technically, I think, only like 5.5 inches wide. And then I cut it down to 16 inches, and then I just cut off the edges at a 22.5-degree angle on my miter saw. You don't have to use an electric miter. You can use a yellow miter box and cut them down by hand. Totally doable, not so hard. I just like the convenience and ease of using my miter saw because it's less work, and that's my lazy way to do it. Anyways, and then I put in a hole. I did a 3/8 inch hole, and I hope that it's a good size for it, but you might want to do a 1/2 inch hole. And then I gave it a really good sand down so the edges weren't as rough and that they're kind of rounded. So these are prepped and ready to go for us. Now, I've done these tags before in my Easter episode, and I just used these chalkboards that I got from Dollar Tree, and I kind of cut down the edges and used these. But I wanted something a little bit more substantial. So what I did this time is I had some scrap wood from my fireplace build left over. So this is free to me. Well, not really free, but it was leftover scrap. So I counted for it in my other project. So I'm counting it as free now. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna take some black chalk paint and we're gonna paint the entire front and sides. Now I'm not gonna do anything with the back at this point just because I might use it as like a reversible thing and do something with that for another holiday. I like to do that. You get a 2-for-1. But for this one, we're just gonna do the front and sides in a black chalk paint. I have a printable here for you that you can use to do an image transfer technique, and then you can use the graphite paper with this and just trace the image onto your tags and hand paint Trick or Treat on in a white chalk paint. For me, I like the ease of using my Cricut vinyl stencils. It's a little cleaner look, and so I'm going to go ahead and just use some stencils, and I'm going to peel the stencil back and put it on the dried tag. And then what I'm going to do for a nice crisp edge, you know I like to do this process, is I'm going to go back over it in the black. Let that dry, and then we'll take our white chalk paint and go over that and maybe do 2 coats of it so it's a nice opaque finish. So I'm gonna go over the top of my Trick or Treat in a white glitter. I actually get these glitters from Dollar Tree. This is in a pack, and we're gonna use the black in a little bit. But I'm gonna take this white glitter and I'm gonna mix it in with some Mod Podge. Now, I only had matte on hand. What I recommend when you're doing glitter is to use the gloss Mod Podge, but I can't find any. I'm just gonna go ahead and use the matte because it's what I have on hand, and the show must go on, and I'm hoping that it will still work out just fine. Now, the reason I mix in the glitter with the Mod Podge is so it's not flaking everywhere, and when it dries it's completely encased, but you still get the shine of the glitter without all of the mess. So that's why I went doing it that way. Now when this is all dried, then we're going to peel back our stencil, or if you're doing it by hand, you don't have to peel back a stencil, obviously. At this point, distress the edges if you want. Even though I use the glitter, I'm still going to distress around the edges. And then we're just gonna glue these on the whole. I'm gonna use a little bit of hot glue. We're gonna take some nautical rope that we got from the Dollar Tree. I don't know if they still sell this or not, I hope so. This is from my stash. And we're gonna just thread it through and create a knot. Now I got this fun little pick at Michael's, and we're gonna be using the majority of it, but I thought it would be really cute to just add a little decorative element. I thought I would take the leftovers of this pick and some ribbons that I had on hand and some extra pom-poms from a DIY coming up here in a minute, and create a little something something for the top. Just a little bit of leftovers and odds and ends sometimes can make all the difference, but these tags are super adorable and can stand alone by themselves. I had probably maybe at most 50 cents worth of rope, and then some leftovers from around my house and a little bit in supply. So I'm gonna call this under $1 for this adorable Trick or Treat sign. So cute, and what a deal at only $1. You can't go wrong. So as a part of my Way Cool Dirt Cheaps, you know that I always do some sort of topiary, and this is no exception. So I picked up this from Target Dollar Spot. It would be pretty easy to DIY this. Just find an orange pumpkin and add some glittery circles on it. And so that would be pretty easy to do, but this one was ready to go. I also last year picked up these cute little guys from Dollar Tree. So I'm not gonna be using these for my topiary, but I might, because they match so cutely, I might kind of just pepper them through my little display. So I figure even if you can't find these exact items, you could recreate it really easily by just doing some glittery black polka dots. Our last DIY, I used the white glitter, and in this DIY, I'm gonna use the black glitter from the same packet from the Dollar Tree. And I picked up this at the Dollar Tree a while back, and if you ever come across something similar to this, snatch them up because you don't see them at Dollar Dollar Tree all the time. You might be able to find them online. And this is kind of like a chalk finish, which is very similar to our tags that we just did, but I wanted to pump it up a little bit. So we're gonna just do that same glittering technique, but with the black. And we're gonna just do some accents of the black glitter by painting it on the upper portion and just kind of trying to follow the natural lines of this and adding just a touch of glitter to this face. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our pumpkin and literally just set it on the top. Now you could permanently affix this, but with this being lightweight and foam, I'm not really worried about it getting knocked over and like damaged. It's pretty sturdy, and I want to be able to keep this as an option to use elsewhere. So all we really need to do is just kind of set it on top. It's super cute in and of itself, but to kind of up the ante just a little bit, I am gonna take some of these leaves and some of these sticks and some of these greeneries, but we call it like blackeries, I don't know, and just snip off a little bit of these and hot glue them around the base of the stem of our pumpkin to just kind of add a little bit more of a finished high-end look to it. So my Target pumpkin was $3, my candlestick was another $1, and then just using a little bit of this pick from Michael's, we'll call it $1 extra, so that's $5 plus a little bit of this and that. So between $5 and $5.50, you've got a really cute Halloween themed topiary. I think it's really cute. Next up, we've got our wood canvas. Now, last time we did this apple wreath, the little mini apple wreath, which I thought was so cute. I did a couple wreaths, and then I've also done some other things on it. We've used this for like 6 of these episodes. So we're gonna just take this wreath off, and then we are left with a blank canvas, and we just reuse this season after season, which I really love. And what you technically could do is literally just cut this out and then just like tacky putty it in and call it a day. But I wanted to up the ante a little bit, so I'm going to be doing mine in glitter paper. And if you wanted to do this too, just use this as kind of a template and put it over your glitter paper and cut it out. But I just went ahead and cut mine out on my Cricut machine, and I used glitter paper. So we've got the orange glitter paper for October, and it will go on the side and it will say October. And then I've got the 31, and look at this adorable spider. And I just tacky putty them onto the frame. So then you've got this really cute sign, super easy to put together, like not much work at all. October 31st for Halloween, with a little spider for just added cuteness. Although spiders are not really cute, let's be honest, but in this case it's kind of cute. So I originally paid $5 for this wood canvas, and we've now used it 6 times, so that now drops the price of this wood canvas. It makes it 83 cents this time, plus a little bit of glitter paper, which I get on sale at Hobby Lobby for $4 for $1. I'm gonna call this just over $1 for this one this time, which is such a steal. That's pretty much dirt cheap. You don't get much cheaper than that. So next up, I'm gonna be making a little garland. Now I picked up this package of little witch hats at Dollar Tree. Package of 5 for $1. And what we're gonna do is we are gonna take these and we are gonna paint them out front and back in black chalk paint. We've been using the black chalk paint on several things, so that will kind of make it all kind of cohesive. And on the brim of this witch's hat, we are going to add a little bit of glitter because our witch is a fancy witch. And we're gonna let that all dry. And now while that's drying, here's where we're gonna bring in our purple. We are gonna take some of this purple yarn, but it's kind of like a brighter purple, and I love it. We're gonna just make a pom-pom on our little mini pom-pom maker, and it's really easy to do. You just kind of open up one side, and then you kind of wrap it back and forth until it's full, and then we cut that off and close that side, and we repeat this process on the other side. Wrap, 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 back and forth until it's full. And then we close it, and then we take some scissors and snip, snip, snip down the middle on both sides, And then we're going to take another piece of our yarn and we tie that around the middle in a double knot, maybe even a triple knot, and then cut that off and leave a little bit of streamers. Then we just pop this off and you have a little mini pom-pom. And if you need to do a little haircut here and there on any little stragglers, go ahead and do that. We're going to make about 7 of those. I don't know if we'll use all of those. And then we're going to just attach this to some twine. So once we have all of our purple pom-poms made, we are going to assemble our garland by tying them on with the leftover string from where we tied the knot on the pom-poms. And then we are going to snip it off so it looks just like it was on there the whole time and you'll not see those end pieces. And then we're going to rotate the purple pom-poms and the black glittery witch hats every other one, and then we have a really cute garland. Now, the yarn we used hardly any of. It's super inexpensive. I used a coupon and the witch's hats were $1. So I'm going to call this a $2 garland, and it is going to look so cute on our printable, which is coming up next. But what do you think of this garland? And now the moment you've been waiting for, my free Halloween printable, and it's a good one. I'm really excited. So you'll recall from my fall one I did an apple theme, and it was this one, and it's so cute. I love this one, but I love them every time, and this was no exception. This time we're shaking it up a little bit, and this is really fun and spunky, and it's gonna tie our whole color scheme and everything together. It's really adorable, and it is this Trick or Treat, Smell My Feet. Well, it doesn't actually say feet, but it has these really cute witch's feet, which I actually got off of Miss Kate's Cuttables. Very cute. I'm going to put a link to her website below. She has some other styles as well, and if you wanted to like design a whole theme to go on it, she sells them really inexpensive there. It's such a fun DIY because it's so easy. All you have to do is take your print and stick it in the frame and you're done. Now, I normally have been recommending Staples. Unfortunately, Staples has been getting a little bit more expensive almost every time I go, it feels like. It got to the point where I thought, this is not worth it. I decided to give Walgreens a try this time, and their price for 16 by 20 is regularly, I think, $15.99. Now, $15.99 is not that much cheaper than the Staples. However, I used a 50% off coupon that they had on their website, making it $7.99, which does fall within our $10 limit, which is awesome and perfect. And for such a big, beautiful piece of art, that is right in budget. And my understanding is, it seems like that they have coupons regularly. So this 50% off coupon is, I think, good through the end of September. I think that there's Walgreens all over the place. So this should make it a really accessible option for you, which is perfect. So $7.99 plus our free frame that I've had forever. So even though I'm not like a big Halloween decorator, I think that this printable is super adorable instead of a spooky, scary Halloween, which is totally in line with me. Up next, we have Way Cool Dirt Cheap DIY for fall. From last year, this is the one that we did. And what I've done in the past is I'll flip it around and we'll do something on the back. Now, this is pretty big and it might not work for what we're doing. This size at Lowe's right now, I think it's like $13 or $14 for this 18-inch round. There is this 15-inch size. I believe this runs for close to $10, and it's actually a pretty good size for what we're doing today. But what I think I'm going to actually use is this 12-inch size. It's just a little bit smaller. I think it will work better for what we're doing, and it runs for about $8, so budget-wise it's a little bit better. I start by creating my own antiquing glaze by taking some clear glaze with a little craft paint. I used raw umber and chocolate kiss. I mix that together well and then apply it to both sides of the wood round with a foam brush, and wiping off the excess and evening out the tone with some kind of cloth. I actually used a baby wipe. Once we got both sides stained and ready to go, while we're doing that, we can go into Cricut Design Studio. And I've designed a pumpkin farm image that you can download for free. I'll put the link for all of the free stuff that I'm giving away in the description box below. Now, if you haven't been able to invest in a Cricut machine yet, if you can consider it, I would highly recommend it. But if you don't, if you watch some of my past Way Cool Dirt Cheap episodes, there is an alternative method on how to use this image. Once we have the image, we're going to click on Upload and then click on Upload an Image. Once we find the image in the folder and have it uploaded, we're going to click on Moderately Complex and then click on the image and click Insert Image. That was pretty wordy, but hopefully you understand. Then we're going to add an 11 3/4 inch circle. And then we're going to place the image over the top of the circle and adjust the size. Then you're going to highlight everything and hit attach. Then that's all we need to do. We can go ahead and cut it on my new Cricut Maker 3, and we can cut that without the mat. And that's how we're actually able to cut it at the 11.75. If you have to put it on a mat, then you'll need to get that circle down to 11.5 inches. And then we weed it. Put on transfer tape, and apply our stencil to our wood round. Now this is where I usually use the same paint that's underneath to kind of seal off the edges and to create crisp, clean lines. Now I actually haven't ever tried using a antique and glaze as a sealer. I don't think it will work really well. So what I'm going to use instead is a clear matte Mod Podge, and we are going to take that and do one coat over our stencil and let that fully dry. And what that will do is when it bleeds, it will bleed a clear matte finish, which will create a seal and prevent that bleeding. After the Mod Podge dries, we're going to do one coat of plaster colored chalk paint. I find that I have the best luck using chalk paint on stencils. It works so much better than the craft paint, in my opinion. Once that dries, we can peel back the stencil and give the entire thing a light sand down. Now, I want mine to be more aged looking, so I mix up some black craft paint with water and layer it on, doing extra layers kind of around the edges until I am happy with the overall look. And that's it for now. The cost of the wood round was around $8. Let's call paint and supplies $1, but it could be less. And we're looking at around $9. You could display it as is, mixing it in with your other fall decor, and that would be very cute. Or you could pair it with our next DIY, which is we are going to be making like a mounting hanging bracket. I have used a lot of wood spindles on here. I probably should put a whole compilation video of just wood spindle projects. I get these outdoor deck spindles. This is an outdoor spindle, and we are going to go outside. So we're going to be using a miter saw today. You could do this project with a jigsaw, a circular saw, or whatever you have on hand. We're going to just make some cuts on here. I'm not measuring anything, so just watch where I make the cut. So let's cut. We're going to cut off this, and we're going to cut it like right on that line. Line up our blade right up against that, and we're going to hold it nice and tight here. So that's a pretty good cut. We're gonna just cut it off right here, leave a little bit. We have one of these inexpensive paint sticks, and then we are going to kind of attach it like so. We'll screw it in with a screw from this side so you can kind of see what it's gonna look like. How cute is that, right? But we don't want it to look like a paint stick, so we're gonna cut off the handle. You've got this piece and then this piece, and this is the piece that will brace it up against the wall, and this is what we're going to hang our sign from. Now it's time to assemble our wall bracket. We are going to start by pre-drilling some holes, first on the spindle on the square side. Then in the middle, near the top of the paint stick, we're going to screw them together, and now we can pre-drill some small holes for some screws coming later. And that's on the spindle side as well as the paint stick side. Now we're going to use the same paint technique by mixing some black craft paint with baking soda and kind of stippling it onto the wood in a pouncing motion. Once that's dry, we're going to go back over the top and use the same stippling effect with Onyx craft paint, which is kind of a black color with a metallic finish. We don't want to completely cover up the last paint job we did. We're just kind of hit it here and there, and this will make our wood look a little bit more like iron than wood. With that dry, we can screw in the eye hooks that used to be silver, and I spray painted them black. I didn't do that on camera. Then I take some chain that I got at the Dollar Tree. It's from those hanging baskets that you can find there pretty easily. And I lay everything out to see how long I want the chain, and I ultimately decide that 5 chain links plus the little latch hook was the right length. And then we lay those out to decide where to put in the eye hooks onto the wood round, and I mark that, and then I pre-drill some small holes, and we put in our eye hooks, and then we attach it to our hanging chain. I hope that all makes sense. How cool is this piece? I hung it near my front door, and it's so much fun. Depending on where you hang yours, you can make it double-sided. I left the back blank so I could do a different season on the back and just flip it around. I thought it would be really cool to do a larger version of this. Our cost breakdown was the spindle at $2.18, the paint stick was at 33 cents, and then I have paint and hardware around 50 cents each. So that has this DIY at $3.50. Unbelievable. So if you've been watching my channel for a while and you have seen one of my Way Cool Dirt Cheap episodes, then you will know that I always have a little canvas that looked similar to this, and I switched it out with a season. Now, the original one had a black frame and a white center. I'm pretty sure it's packed away with Christmas decor. I couldn't find it, but I had this other one that I had used in my bedroom, and we are going to be using this today. It's actually meant to be like a wood canvas, and I get these at Walmart, and they're $4.97. They're 10 by 10 dimension, but we flip it over and use the back side. It looks like a perfect wood canvas this way. And so if you have one of these from a past one, just go ahead and reuse it. You could leave this plain, but I'm going to use some cheetah print wrapping paper that I got from Home Goods and cut a little square of it to fit inside. You'll see why I decided to do this on the next DIY. Then I just take a glue stick and put a little glue on the back, not a lot to adhere it. I do this because I feel like I can easily remove it for the next season if I so choose. I decided to make a wreath out of some random odds and end flowers and stuff that I have in my craft stash that I picked up on end of year sales or from past DIYs. I first do a quick whitewash over some orange Dollar Tree pumpkins just to kind of tone them down a little bit. Then I create my own wreath by cutting off sprigs of this boxwood with the little pinks on the tips, and then I start twisting it together using some floral tape to secure it. And then I start adding this and that with hot glue, some mini pumpkins, acorns, fall leaves, and a few bright colored flowers until I am happy with the look. Then I wanted to add a little wood pumpkin, but I didn't have one on hand, but that was no matter because I just went into Cricut Design Studio and I found one that I liked and set the dimensions to around 3 inches. Then I add a hello in the Cricut font and fall in the Asley brush font, and you can get that second one on dafont.com. I first cut out the vinyl, and then I cut out the wood pumpkin on my Cricut Maker 3. Then I weaved the vinyl to create a stencil, and I used transfer tape to apply it to our wood pumpkin. I carefully paint the chocolate brown craft paint, and I don't use anything to seal it this time, so I just try to do it very carefully. And then I remove our stencil and then took some ribbon and looped it around our wreath and taped it to the back of the canvas. And add our cute pumpkin to the wreath with a little hot glue. Now, I know this looks a little wild. It's kind of a bold choice, but you could definitely do this with a more neutral palette and it would look fantastic too. But sometimes I just get the urge to be a little brave, and I really like how this turned out. As for the cost breakdown, we bought the canvas for about $5 with paint, flowers, supplies, etc. I estimate this to be around $10, which is such a steal. So I really like how this turned out, but what do you think? So for our next way cool, dirt cheap DIY for fall, we are going to be making over this pumpkin that I used in a previous episode a couple years ago. It's cute, but I'm ready for something new. We're going to start by painting the stem gold because I thought that that would look better with the overall color palette, and then I set that aside to dry. Then we are going to start by cutting some strips of that cheetah wrapping paper again that will fit around each section of the pumpkin, and we are going to Mod Podge this on by generously applying a layer of Mod Podge and then kind of pressing the wrapping paper around each one of those rungs with your finger, and it will pucker around the curves, and that is okay. Just make sure it all gets really pressed into the pumpkin. Also, you're going to want to make sure to overlap each section. I found as I went along, it was a good idea to kind of round off each end of the paper to kind of fit the shape a little bit better. And after we get the paper on, I went back on and added a layer of Mod Podge over the top. And then I let the pumpkin fully dry. Now you could just leave it like this and it would be very cute, but I kind of wanted to have a coordinating set with a wreath, so I just got back out my flowers and hot glue and just kind of let my creativity go and hot glued on some flowers near the stem. I love how this looks. It's a little funky and non-traditional, but sometimes it can be fun to add a little spice in our lives. As for the cost, I reused a dollar spot pumpkin from Target that I had on hand. I believe it was originally around $5, and I estimate for the florals another $1 for the Mod Podge and wrapping paper. So I'm putting this right around $7. I think it was probably a little less, but I think it was worth every penny. But what do you think? Now is the moment that I think most people wait for, and that is my free printable that I give out on my Way Cool Dirt Cheap episodes. I have a lot of fun designing these, and I'm really excited about this one that I've designed today. So this is the frame that I always use. I got it from a thrift store years and years ago. I put a quick coat of paint on it, sanded it down, and I use this for every single one. So this is a 16 by 20. It's what I designed them for. I've seen these on Pinterest and I've always thought that they were really cute. Here is my free printable. It's got a little bit of glare on it, so hopefully you can kind of see it. And all we're gonna do is print this out, put put it in our frame and call it a day. It's the easiest DIY. So as for the cost, I don't put any price to this frame just because it's one that I've had forever, and to me it's basically free because it's been kicking around my house for 15 years. And I figure most people will have something that they can use. When I had this print out last week, they were running a huge sale. And for a 16 by 20 print, it's normally $18.99. I print mine at Walgreens, and they always are running some kind of sale on their prints. And it's usually 40 to 50% off. Walgreens was running a sale for 75% off. So my print was $4.75. That is the cheapest I've ever done this for this size print. And it is so super cute with my autumn decor and all of the things that we've made today. I think it makes a really cute vignette. It also sizes down really good to an 8 by 10, and you can print it at your home printer if you like it. You can do a small size, and then with a Dollar Tree frame, you're at $1.50 max. If you enjoyed this episode, here's 25 more that I think you'll like as well. And to all of my DIY goddesses out there, you are more powerful than you know. We'll see you next time. Bye.